So I really wanted to take some time during this board meeting to share a little bit about our district report card. You've seen some little bits and pieces here and there, but I thought maybe this would be a good time to dig in just a little bit more, knowing that our agenda is not quite as long this particular month. So our school report card, this is the traditional makeup of what makes up a report card. And I've linked all this in your thing if you want to go back and take a look. So the achievement part is 25% of your rating goes for all the tests. Those are things that take place at the end of the school year. The graduation component is 12.5%. So that's 2 cohorts. That's not only the 4-year cohort, but that's the 5-year cohort. In other words, 1 year after. Early literacy is another component, and that's the number of students who kind of move from kindergarten to 3rd grade and are proficient in reading. And yet we kind of put them on things called RIMPs. You probably have heard of those. And we're still always kind of navigating what's the right way. Put more on RIMP, less on RIMPs. What does that mean in the long run? But that's 12.5%. The progress component is kind of that value added component, how much they've grown from 1 year to the next. This brand new measure, it's 12.5%. It's called College Workforce and Military Readiness. We affectionately name it CCWMR, but it's a brand new measure, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And then gap closing is how we're closing the gap between our subgroups. So it's how much are we taking our special ed kids and moving up? How about that social economic group? How much are we moving them up? And it can even be down to ethnicities and so on and so forth. But how are we closing that gap to get them closer together? And so you take all of this together and you get a rating. In Ohio, you get a star rating. 1 means you're significantly falling short of state standards, and you need significant support. If you get a 2, you fell short. If you get a 3, it means you're meeting the state standards. If you get a 4, you're exceeding the state standards. And if you get a 5, you're significantly exceeding the state standards. In Mount Vernon City Schools this year as a district, and so they'll rate you as a district, and then they'll break it down and even go individual buildings. But as a district, we were a 4-star district. And so we feel really, really good about that particular rating. As a district in achievement, in other words, those tests, we were exceeding the state standards. I'll share a little bit more about that. Progress, we are a 4-star district. Gap closing, we're a 5-star district across the board, and you'll see that in the building ratings as well. Graduation has been one that has been a bit of a challenge for us in the past. We've met the state standards, but we've always been in that 90, 91%. Through a lot of effort, we're up to 94.7% in our 5-year cohort average, and they've really been doing some good work there. Early literacy is a measure we're still trying to navigate. Even though we have half of our elementaries are 5-star buildings, we still are at this 3 early literacy, and that is pretty common among the state. I don't know that we've seen any early literacy that's been a 5. Few sneakers have gotten up in there in the 4. But again, it's trying to find out how all that's calculated, because trust me, our elementary buildings who are 5-star, they're looking at that 1 mark that says 3, and they're like, how do you get that? And so we're really working on that. And this college and workforce and military readiness, this is one I've shared a little bit with you. We got a 2-star here. And it's a brand new measure this year. It's the first time it's come out in the grade card. Ironically, what it's measuring is a senior class from 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, not last year's graduating class, but the class before, how were they relative to college, career, workforce, and military readiness? And I'll share with you some information about that, where we're at from that year to where we already know what next year's score is going to be, because it's always a year in the rears. And we took some big steps knowing where we would be a year ago. So as a district, we're rated as a 4. And that is as high as anybody regionally that we're within. And I always love this one. In our 20 district cohort, I know this is very small. You can just take a look at this later. There's only one district in our 20 similar cohort district that rated higher than Mount Vernon. And you can see the names: Ashland, Eaton, Midview, Bellevue, Louisville, Salina, a lot of school districts here. But you go across the board as an overall, and you'll see they've taken that and they've really kind of encapsulated what that would look like. So to rank in the top 10% or of that whole group, I'm really proud of that. And yet we're not satisfied, which is, I'm even more proud of that because we're always looking to kind of improve. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a note here. John Fry did all of the graphics. Thank you, John. And so we really wanted to share with you an accurate depiction of each building, but I'm always wanting to highlight the things that are really good, right? So Columbia was a 4-star overall rating, and that's really good for an elementary. Their achievement was a 4, their progress rating a 3, their gap closing was a 5, and they got 3 stars. So as a building, they were a 4. Dan Emmett, we had fun making a half, but overall, they were a 4.5-star building. And so when you look at the socioeconomics and all of the things that kind of make up some of our buildings, they've really done a marvelous job at Dan Emmett creating that kind of environment. 4-star achievement, 5-star in value adding, in other words, year over year, 4-star in gap closing, 3-star in early literacy, which all of our elementaries got that score. But to be a 4.5-star is really strong for them. East Elementary, they're a 5-star overall district rating. And, you know, that for them, they've been blessed. You see them in their blue here, whether that's a picture from this year or their, blue ribbon year, to get a 5 overall, 5 achievement, 5 progress, 5 gap closing, and an early literacy score of a 3 it says an awful lot. Pleasant Street Elementary, they were a 5-star gap closing school, but yet they were an overall 3.5-star rated school. So we know we got some work there. Testing, they were 3, a 3 in progress, a 5 in gap closing, and they did have an early literacy rating of 2. So while they met all state indicators and were even above in their overall rating, really good job in gap closing. This early literacy score is something we're certainly going to focus in on. Twin Oak Elementary was another one of our overall 5-star ratings. 5-star in achievement, 4-star in progress, 5-star in gap closing, 3 stars in early literacy. But again, this overall score is really impressive, realizing that we have 3 buildings, including Wiggins Street here, who have an overall 5-star rating. You'll see this is very similar to what you saw at East. 5, 5, 5, 5, and 3. Probably one that I'm just incredibly proud of is Mount Vernon Middle School. So they will recognize that they've been that challenge, because when you bring 6 elementary schools together, we've struggled for years to try to get kind of off of, kind of that just average range. In every single category, all 4 of these, they improved by 1 full star. And that's a result of great work by their administration and their staff. But to overall be 4 stars, testing achievement 4 stars, progress rating 3 stars. So what I'm saying here is every one of these would have been 1 star last year. And so they're making some significant improvement. The high school continues to do a really good job. You're seeing all 4 stars, 5-star in gap closing. We got this one little sticky one down here that I'll share just a little bit more with you, that they didn't just start working on this when it came out. We started working on this last year. So you'll see where the results of that probably come in. Here's a composite of all of it. Again, you can take a look. So, Columbia across the board, you can see where they were, Dan Emmett, so on and so forth. You see a lot of 5 stars in here. That means we've significantly exceeded the state average. Did want to bring some snapshots into picture. And so as you look at 3rd grade here, and I'll do one for each grade real quick. We are the blue, the dark blue. The green is our similar districts, those districts that are so similar to us. And then 5 is the state average. My goal every year, our goal every year, is to be higher than our similar districts and to be definitely higher than the state average. It's really, really important. So when you look at third grade down here in math, we are at 74.9%, similar district 69, and the state was 64. I'm not going to read through every one of these as we go down through, but I would love for you to be able to keep this in mind. Look at the district score, and then just quickly look here. You're going to find in many instances we can get close to 20% better than the state average. 20% is pretty good, right? So that's third grade. Fourth grade, you're seeing a similar kind of a pyramid effect, all right? And so, you look at mathematics. As a district, we were 88% proficient. The state average is 69. I mean, that's close to a 20% difference, and that's really, really impressive. You look at fifth grade, we tested 3 areas. Again, when you've got this kind of a movement, you really, really like seeing that. Again, 83.9% in English, state's down to 67, even bigger here in science, 83, down to 63 is a state average. So we're really pleased with those scores. Jumping into the middle school, again, you're getting your same kind of averages there. I mean, right here, you look, it's almost a 20% difference in mathematics than the state average. This is over 20% in English. So we're really, real pleased with that. A little bit of a level here. We're still above the state average in 7th grade English, but just slightly below our similar cohort. And I can tell you they've already started sneaking in and taking a look, comparing last year to see where they can make some difference. Then in 8th grade, they do test in 3 areas in 8th grade: science, math, and English. And you can see, I mean, you're starting to see some real big differences. Look at math in 8th grade. It must have been a really tough test, but for the state average in our similar districts to be right around 50%, here we are at 70, almost 76%. Again, scores we're really, really pleased with.
So that makes you know that the 7th grade was an anomaly too. Yeah. 6th and 8th were.
They were good. And so you probably could go back, if we went back and looked at last year, you probably could have seen that as 6th graders, they might have been closer to to their similar districts and maybe the state. So sometimes you just get classes that come through, that will kind of line up that way. At the high school level, we have 6 measures, testing-wise. And so again, Algebra 1, you see us with that nice dip that we like to see, 76% for our district, and you're down to 59 at the state. Same with biology, and same with American U.S. history. So all trending in the right direction, that we're exceeding state standards, and certainly that group. Here's the one that's a little bit interesting, and I shared a little bit in our board update. But again, English language arts is 2. That would be more of your 10th grade English. Geometry is generally a 10th grade class. However, government ends up becoming a junior or senior level class. And so when you see this isn't the direction we want to be. And that was certainly something that Kathy and I have spent some time really drilling down, working with Ben and Corey at the high school. And there's some interesting reflection that we can glean from that. I shared a little bit with you in our update, and I think I have it in the next slide there where I can share it a little bit more. So we do have some focus areas for improvement, because like coaches, we can celebrate our successes, and we're celebrating, but every coach finds a reason to stay engaged and keep fighting to get better, because we never feel like we've reached, that perfect spot.